Chapter 6. What is your default money mindset? Have you identified your money mindset yet? Because of our money mindset, we all have a financial default position. This means that even if our financial position changes and we get an unexpected sum of money or lose money, we will with time revert back to that default financial position. Most of us will have seen this happen, or maybe even experienced it ourselves. Think of someone you know who is very rich. Just for example, Richard Branson. What do you think his default financial position might be? If Richard Branson lost everything he owned, would he have above or below the average amount of money 3 years later? An example of the financial default position in action is the Ugandan Asians expelled from their homeland in 1972 with nothing. They went on to build back up all their wealth in one generation. The Ugandan government under President Idi Amin gave all Ugandan Asians exactly 90 days to leave the country, accusing them of taking all the wealth from the native Ugandans, hoarding it and sabotaging the economy. The Asians in Uganda had been extremely financially successful and had a significant influence on the Ugandan economy. They constituted 1% of the population, but controlled a fifth of the national income. President Amin wanted to return that wealth to the ordinary Ugandan people. In August 1972, Amin gave the Ugandan Asians 90 days to leave the country, forcing more than 70,000 people to leave behind highly successful businesses, as well as their homes. The Ugandan government stripped them of everything they owned, and they fled with nothing but £50 each. Many tried to enter Britain. Britain eventually agreed to allow entry to some of these deportees after a great deal of hostility. Leicester City Council took out a now infamous advert in the widely read Uganda Argus newspaper, warning migrants against going to Leicester, as no housing, schools or health services would be available for them. 27,000 Ugandan Asians did, however, come to the UK, with nothing but whatever they had managed to smuggle out of Uganda and their £50. From the moment they arrived, they settled and they began to rebuild. Bit by bit they succeeded. Within a single generation, these people had started and built successful businesses and sent their children to university. 40 years later, they were once again financially successful. A generation later, the Ugandan government tried to entice back some of these citizens that they had expelled, finally recognising that they had played a key role in the country's wealth generation. Clearly, they were more than just greedy people hoarding all the money and keeping it for themselves. They were people who took actions that resulted in wealth creation. This was their rich money mindset at work. Paul Harris, writing on the 30th anniversary for the Observer newspaper in 2002, related the success story of the Ugandan Asians who arrived in Britain in 1972. And he says that most arrived with nothing. 30 years on, despite being told that they were unwelcome, they have flourished and become one of Britain's most successful migrant communities. It's estimated that their businesses have created over 30,000 jobs in the Leicester region. We all have a default money mindset position, and we automatically revert to type. You have absorbed this mindset from your parents and the key people around you. Your financial situation is a direct reflection of your beliefs and values around money. Those beliefs and values form an underlying force that drives your financial results. We know that poor people have a very tough time and face terrible challenges and situations because of lack of money. When working as a debt advisor, I found many of my clients' experiences to be heart-wrenching. But giving money to the poor alone may not eliminate their poverty in the longer term. Two people, each with the same amount of money, may experience either poverty or wealth. The same is true for time management. Everyone has exactly the same amount of time in a day. Some people consistently experience time poverty, while others seem to have enough time to do what they need. If you could give someone who experiences time poverty an extra bit of time in the day, do you think it would make a big difference to them? Probably not, because this is all about their perception of enough time and how they manage their time in the first place. So it is evident that something deeper drives financial results. The first time I noticed this was when I saw what happened to the money in my immediate family. My father, who was a generous and caring man, repeatedly recreated conditions of poverty and lack in his and our family's lives over and over again through his fear, by being too afraid to follow his dream and set up a fishing equipment shop, too afraid to quit a job that destroyed him, too afraid to let my mother retire early from a job she hated, too afraid to sell shares and live with ease. He was simply too afraid to change. When I was around 3, my father had set up a business growing and supplying vegetables to shops. Then he expanded to selling hair accessories as well. This business failed about 3 years later, as most first-time small businesses do. My great-grandfather, who founded a hugely successful chain of department stores, failed twice in business before he got it right. Years later, the same happened with one of my businesses too, so I understand how difficult it is to get back in the saddle. For the first 18 months after Dad's business folded, he stayed out in a fishing boat, smoking endless cigarettes in a state of complete shock and denial. The bank manager threatened to repossess our home. Mum went back to work as a teacher and carried on that job for the next 30 years, loathing every single day. I don't think I recall ever seeing her happy. Dad took a job in another of the family's businesses and also worked for 30 years in a job that he hated with every fibre of his being. The drama behind the mindset. There is a saying, you do everything the way you do money, which means that how you behave with money is how you behave about all aspects of your life. Some of us may be already familiar with the Karpman drama triangle, developed by Dr. Stephen B. Karpman, MD, in 1968. The basic concept underpinning the Karpman drama triangle is the connection between responsibility, power, and vulnerability between people, particularly in how they feel about themselves in relation to others. Each position in this triangle has unique, readily identifiable characteristics. Individuals may have a default position, that is, one they adopt much of the time, but where there is a dysfunctional behaviour, they tend to spin from role to role around this triangle. The victim. Victims believe they are vulnerable and have no power or responsibility. Their mistreatment and suffering forms their identity. Things are never right and there is never enough. They always need something more before they are willing to take responsibility for their life and take any action. And they always have a reason for inaction. Indifference, depression, and anger are characteristic states. And no matter how much energy, information, time or support you provide victims, they rarely change. The rescuer. Rescuers believe they have responsibility to care for those not capable of caring for themselves, that is, victims. They believe that they have all the answers and they know all the right solutions for others. Through controlling and changing others, they attempt to get a sense of identity, as well as attention and respect. But through taking that responsibility away from other individuals, they render them powerless. They spend their time taking care of and directing others' lives, but their own life might be a mess. Without someone, something, or a cause to rescue, the rescuer feels lost. No longer the knight in shining armour, the liberator or the protector, and they can end up aimless and even jobless without someone to rescue. The persecutor. Persecutors blame others for their own negative feelings and punish others through destructive actions. They are harshly judgmental, often motivated by fear of loss of control, and can be extremely unempathetic and unfeeling towards others' incompetence or suffering. The cycle in action. Andrew borrows money from Bill, and Chris is a colleague of both. Andrew is short of money and he feels no responsibility for this, and Bill feels sorry for him. He feels responsible for helping him financially because Andrew is his friend, and he lends him a significant sum of money after Andrew fervently promises to repay it. Andrew then cannot repay it, and indeed feels no responsibility for this either. He simply doesn't have enough. Bill needs the money back urgently, as he now cannot pay his rent, and he complains bitterly to Chris, who feels responsible for helping his friend Bill. He has an argument with Andrew, pointing out that it's Andrew's fault that Bill can't pay his rent. Andrew then feels aggrieved and has an argument with Bill, blaming him for motivating Chris to verbally attack him. Chris then feels that Andrew and Bill have ganged up on him, and the whole situation is hopeless, and he tells his boss what's happened and he wants to move to another department. Where people have a dysfunction in the way they relate to the rest of the world, it also shows up in the actions they take with money, whether their own or someone else's. Look at what someone you know does with money. Are they mostly a rescuer, a persecutor, or a victim? They will also behave this way in other aspects of their life. Who a person is on the inside shows up in how they are with money. Money or lack of it is not the cause of their behaviour. Money is the great revealer. You will see a persecutor when you spot one. They will take money unfairly or punish others for their incompetence. A rescuer will want to access more and more money so that they can rescue more people, regardless of whether it would serve those people in the long run or not. And a victim wants to be given more and more because they will always need rescuing. Money makes you more of what you are. By way of example, here are some very rich people who show very different behaviours with money. Richard Branson, Bob Geldof, Bill and Melinda Gates, Robert Mugabe, Justin Bieber, Katie Price, Bernie Madoff, or Wayne Rooney. If you were operating one of these dysfunctional roles, you will be running beliefs that will lead to negative financial results in your life. If you believe that you are financially vulnerable, have no power or responsibility, and need to be rescued, then you will have poor financial results. If you believe others need to be rescued, you are imposing what you think is right for them. They will have poor financial results and not learn how to run their own finances, consequently ending up in a poverty trap where they continually need rescuing. If you blame others for their financial problems or poverty, instead of behaving with compassion and generosity, you will make decisions that keep other people poor. With any of these dysfunctions, you're keeping yourself or others in old, limiting mindsets that stop them choosing different, more helpful beliefs that would make their financial lives better. We can relate these dysfunctions back to the money mindsets. Let's recap on some of the core beliefs. In debt, there is never enough. It's not my fault and I am blameless. I am powerless around money. Something or someone should and will rescue me. Break even. Those who get into debt are bad with money. It upsets me when I always have to pay for people who are bad with money. Rich people are bad and take advantage of the poor. Comfortable. People who get into debt deserve what happens to them. Why should others have to give them handouts? People who don't care about their financial security deserve what happens as a result. I'm not paying for people who've not taken care of their money, and you should not risk anything you cannot afford to lose. Any of these roles can stop you developing a rich money mindset. Real life examples. Feeling like victims, my parents came to bitterly resent the self-employed because business owners were able to avoid many of the stringent taxes my parents had to pay, which meant they felt very poor even though both had good jobs. They also resented welfare recipients who, at that time in Ireland, had free dental and medical care, help with university fees, etc., while regular employees who paid high taxes still had to pay for every service. One man who lived near us was a school headmaster. The only way he could afford for all 5 of his children to go to university was to give up his job and go on welfare, because that way they would all be eligible for a grant. My mother had to choose between dental care for herself and university fees for us, and she let her teeth rot. The default position shows up when an individual is under pressure, and then you can easily spot the money patterns. You can see these as soon as they are short of money, they get any money, or they need to make a financial decision. They are working to a model or a pattern. The victim. A financial victim believes that an external cause or event is responsible for their financial position, that they are completely blameless for any problems that they have with money. You might observe someone with the money victim pattern blaming financial circumstances or lack of money on others, specific or general. For example, they will say things like, I don't have enough money because of the government, or because rich people have taken it all, or my job doesn't pay enough. And it's not only poor people from deprived areas who believe they are financial victims. I've seen many middle-class people with plenty of financial resources and opportunities behave like victims. People who loathe their jobs but continue to sit and wait, sometimes for decades, for a redundancy payoff, or keep working solely to get a pension. They waste the most precious resource they have, time, being financial victims who, deep down, believe that the only way they would generate a large enough sum of money is by getting a payoff to leave their hated job. The most desperate situation I remember was the case of a talented and brilliant man who approached the world from a place of fear, and this fear caused him to behave like a financial victim. He had asked a manager in his organisation, who had no understanding of finances, for financial advice, but her advice turned out to be incorrect. He lost the opportunity to gain a significant additional income stream, and this, I think, caused him to feel even more fearful and more vulnerable. He waited until in his late 50s for a payoff. Hating his job, he spent a decade waiting for the event, and then when he finally received the money, he stuck the whole lot in the bank and lived off a very modest income, rather than using it as a tool to take him to the next level, as he had originally wanted. The last I heard, he was nearing 60 and waiting for his father's death so he could inherit and start to invest in property. A guy I know wanted to invest in property for a pension, so he bought some houses that barely put any money in his pocket after expenses. His rationale was that they would make him money in the future, whenever that might be. Now, this man was intelligent and creative, but because he follows a pattern of a financial victim, he spends the majority of his time working for an organisation he dislikes. Such a waste of wonderful human potential, just because of seeing the world through the eyes of a victim. I told him I too had considered property as a pension, but with a view to creating the pension now rather than in the future. This had meant that my property purchase decisions were much better and more focused on creating an income in the present. Some people feel that all their problems in life are caused by lack of money. They say things like, I had to give it away to my children. I don't earn enough. My parents wouldn't give it to me. Rich people have taken it all and there's not enough to go around. All these things might be true, but if you continue to believe them, you are giving away all the power you have to be able to generate money for yourself. We have all felt and behaved like financial victims at one time or another. We have all blamed others or external circumstances for the poor state of our finances. Sarah, a lady I knew well, struggled terribly for money throughout her life. Because of this struggle, she believed that any actions around money, no matter how bad, were justifiable. She stole from a charity and explicitly overturned her aunt's dying wish about the nature of her burial so that she could profit. And while the elderly aunt was dying in hospital, Sarah stripped the old lady's house of every single belonging, hiring vans to remove everything. The rescuer. A financial rescuer considers that they are virtuous and righteous in their beliefs and their behaviours around money. Rescuers might find themselves taking financial responsibility for others, perhaps by paying for what someone else should take responsibility for. Barbara's grown-up daughter Joy regularly spent her income on holidays and clothes, and when she was threatened with having her gas and electricity cut off, Barbara always picked up the bills. Joy, therefore, never took financial responsibility for herself, and this pattern got worse when Joy had children. Barbara was continually pressured to buy essentials for the children, which she always did, even though she had very little money. On a few occasions when Barbara was with me, she cried because she found the stress of finding money to bail her daughter out overwhelming. She lamented over why Joy would not grow up and take responsibility at the age of 38. Barbara had been financially independent since she was 16. Sadly, Barbara died suddenly, and without her rescuer, Joy was forced to look for another. She immediately married someone she didn't respect or love to support her continued spending. Joy fell into the habit of complaining bitterly to anyone who would listen how unfair it was that she had to tolerate being with her husband because she needed his money. There are many ways that someone can play the role of financial rescuer. One of the most common situations is where one family member takes financial responsibility for someone in the same family unit, be they a grown-up child or another adult. Similarly, where a financial rescuer is operating, children are rarely taught to take financial responsibility. Mary's 25-year-old son Adam lives rent-free in a large house owned by his mother. Meanwhile, Mary lives in a small city flat, working 15 hours a day, renovating a block of flats to produce an income. Adam has no job and shows no sign of being prepared to do anything to take financial responsibility for himself. But Mary is reluctant to stop taking financial responsibility for her son, and it is obvious that until she stops supporting him, Adam will not start being responsible. One day, she explained what was really behind the situation. When Adam was 14, Mary and her husband split up. And that year, Adam did very badly at school and failed all of his exams. Mary blamed herself and felt guilty and has continued to feel responsible for all of Adam's failures ever since. Ideally, Mary, in a kind and compassionate way, needs to let Adam understand that we as adult individuals are responsible for everything that happens in our lives. Only we can find our own solutions. Taking responsibility away from someone else for what truly belongs to them is taking away the possibility of them being able to build the life that they want. In society, this is evident, where financial help is not just a temporary support until someone can get back on their feet, but a belief that it's someone's fault that poor people are poor, and so that the state must permanently rescue them because they are powerless to ever take any financial responsibility for themselves. Entire workforces are dedicated to maintaining and rescuing the poor and confirming all their beliefs that vast swathes of people can only survive on state aid. Some vulnerable people are genuinely not able to take responsibility for themselves and will need state aid for their entire life. A society that values sustaining those too vulnerable to sustain themselves will always support those in need. A society, however, that believes that poverty is someone else's fault and not the individual's responsibility will rescue rather than enable. Ideally, far more focus should be given to educating people born into poverty to the lessons learned by those born with wealth. If a poor person is only exposed to a poor money mindset, how will they take back their power and prosper? We must begin to empower rather than persecute or rescue people. What might happen if we exposed all school children to lessons of creating wealth so they could live the lives they want, rather than educating them to conform to the poor money mindset? The Prosecutor. If you believe your views about money are right and the people who hold other views are wrong, if you consider your views on who deserves or does not deserve money to be right, or you feel smug about your financial position, or you feel very little compassion for people who make poor financial decisions and believe that they get what they deserve, then you are a financial persecutor. An individual driven by a sense of power from getting one over on other people, or from making them do exactly as he wants because he is controlling the money, is a financial bully. And the golden rule of the financial bully is, he who has the gold makes the rules. Persecutors use others' perceived vulnerability around money to bully them. They have beliefs about poor people, and they use these to justify their behaviour. Some attack the rich and blame them for all the ills in society, but when it comes to financial persecution, it doesn't seem to matter whether the object of attack is rich or poor. For example, one of the persecutors' set of beliefs and thoughts about poor people are likely to be that they are feckless and lazy, and that all our financial problems are caused by an underclass sponging off the state. Immigrants and single parents, they complain, are dragging the country to ruin. My paternal grandfather truly believed that all economic woes should be laid at the feet of a group of people called the workers. My Auntie Becky, who was very wealthy and used numerous accountants to ensure she paid as little tax as possible, was known to shake with anger when she spoke of those on welfare. "They're living off us, the parasites," she used to say. She had convinced herself that the poor were living entirely at the expense of herself and others like her. My maternal grandmother, on the other hand, held deep-set persecutor beliefs towards the rich. She loved any laws that would extract money from them, and she held a view that they should be stripped of all of their wealth and horsewhipped in the streets. She believed that the only good rich person was a dead rich person, because they took the money from the poor. They were the ones who owned the means of production, and they kept the poor in poverty with these demonic factories. I remember when I was about 9, the supermarket across from Granny's house was robbed, and she had watched the entire event from her window. When the police called in to make inquiries, Granny was adamant that she saw nothing. I was shocked and asked her why she did this, and she said to me, "Never under any circumstances tell the police about any crime, because all they would do is beat the perpetrator senseless." This was Granny's reality. Neither of these groups, rich or poor, are the cause of all of society's ills. Greedy and evil people can be found in all financial groups. A pimp from grinding poverty in Eastern Europe who is trafficking children for prostitution is no more or less evil than a wealthy American pimp. Corporate fraud is no less or no more serious in its intention than benefit fraud. To believe this stops us taking responsibility for our actions caused by our own beliefs that lead to our results. It is said that money makes you more of what you are. The more you have of it, the more it enables you to be what you are. If you are a giver, it will provide you with the means to give more. If you are a taker, it will provide you with greater power to take more. Over 30 years ago, I saw an extreme version of a taker or persecutor with money who used his power to take too much. My brother Rafe was 13 at the time and wanted to earn some money. He got a shovel and a bucket and went from door to door where we lived in Cork, looking for gardening work. And he did several little jobs for people and was very happy. Then one day a man up the road agreed that he could dig the whole of his large and overgrown garden for £13. I was working as a shop girl at this point and earning about £80 a week. Rafe very soon discovered that he had seriously undercharged for the job, but the homeowner made him stick to his word, and Rafe spent over 2 weeks digging the garden, coming home blistered and exhausted every evening. The homeowner certainly taught Rafe a valuable lesson of how to recognise financial bullies who exploit financial weakness. Some people use money to persecute others in a dishonourable manner. I heard a man proudly boast to his friends that he had a young learning disabled man do his garden for him on a regular basis. This young man didn't understand money, so this man systematically paid him about 5% of the going rate for the job. He did this and got away with it because he was in a position of power. Another person I know used his financial power over others with poorer money mindsets. He paid his staff as little as he could and took every opportunity not to pay them at all. Once, when there was a 3-day holiday for a royal wedding, he refused to pay his staff because the enforced bank holiday meant they had to have the day off. The people who stayed with him were fearful victims, and he played underhand, committing financial offences and cheating people. Luke moved into a small village where many of the locals had limited means. They travelled very little and lived modestly. Luke, whose father was a multi-millionaire, travelled around the world staying in 5-star hotels and was used to the good things in life. Wanting to support local businesses, he commissioned a local builder to build and install a magnificent kitchen in his house. This kitchen was like nothing that Luke's village neighbours had ever seen or heard of in their lives. Few of them had even seen the magazines that advertised this type of kitchen. Luke went away on an exotic holiday for a number of weeks and left the builder to get on with it. On his return, however, Luke found that the builder's work was not up to his standards. The floor didn't look right. The walls were supposed to be as smooth as glass, just like in the 5-star hotels. Loads of things were unsatisfactory, and to make matters worse, the builder couldn't even see where his work failed to meet Luke's standards. The builder, whose most exotic holiday had been to Butlins in Minehead, couldn't see the problem. Luke brought the full force of his father's business legal department onto the builder and sued him, pursuing him relentlessly and tearing him apart financially. The builder was powerless to defend himself against such financial might, and he was never paid for any of his work. He should have been allowed to put right whatever he could, but ultimately Luke should not have engaged someone to do a task that he was incapable of even envisaging, and then crush him. This is bullying, a financial power trip. We all love tales of when people take their power back from financial persecutors. John was a master joiner who had got a contract to install some windows for a local property developer who was well known for agreeing a price for a job without a written contract. Once the work was completed, knowing the tradesman would be desperate for his money, the developer's manager would come along, say the job was not good enough, and offer half the agreed amount. He did this over and over again, and it worked for him because so many people came from the belief, I'm desperate so I have to accept this. But John didn't. The manager came in to inspect the beautiful windows John had made and installed, then told the craftsman that all he would get was half the agreed price. John picked up his power saw, chopped the windows in bits, and left. The Creator. The only way to financial freedom is to learn how to create money. To do this, you have to develop the rich money mindset. Once you have learned and understood that, you never have to worry about money again. Developing a rich money mindset is done by learning how to add value and then leveraging that value. It has never been easier to create money in any time in history than it is now. So much money has been created that the global wealth per person has risen exponentially over the last 100 years. Look to yourself to find the solution to your problems. Learn, ask, and seek out those who have already achieved what you wish to. Spend time with them, read their books, and learn from them. Be honest about where you are financially, because it is only from there that you can genuinely take the next step and improve. Take complete responsibility for your own financial success. Stop taking responsibility for others. Financial support to help someone learn and grow is great. Financial support that keeps somebody disempowered is nasty. Through your adding value and creating new things that others will gladly pay for, more money is created. Think of the list of products and services that we buy now that didn't exist 100, 50, or even 10 years ago. Human creativity and the pace of wealth creation is increasing exponentially. So what if your money mindset is rubbish? What if you are not happy with your current money mindset? You can change your money mindset and choose one that gives you the results you want. Many clients come to me because they are desperately unhappy with the financial results in their life, and they are not living the lives they want because of financial problems. For example, I worked with a fabulous artist who was about to go back to full-time employment and give up on her dream because she couldn't make her art support her. In a few sessions, she had changed her mindset from in debt to rich and is now very successful. She did not get a low-paying job, but leveraged her studio, time and skills to produce multiple income streams. She now has a thriving studio and is the curator of an art gallery. She is in business and making money from her art. Another client wanted to run a business, but knew she was paralysed by her fears. She was terrified of spending and wanted to keep working and build her business as well. She shifted to understanding that this fear was exactly what was stopping her, and she's now a wealthy and successful businesswoman. I had to shift my own mindset from comfortable to rich. Because of my childhood traumas around money, I knew that my own mindset was stopping me from being successful and living the life that I wanted. Look at your current money mindset and ask yourself, is it serving me? Am I happy with the financial results in my life? Is what I have what I want? Discover your money mindset. You can spot someone's money mindset from their bank statements. An individual with an in-debt mindset will show clearly that some of their income is being used to pay debt as soon as it hits the account. You might also see them borrowing money, so that the account begins to show a deficit towards the end of the month. Sometimes things get more serious, and a great deal of the money coming into the account is immediately going to service debt. More debts are taken on with the minimum payments being made. In extreme cases, people don't open their statements or bills. Somebody with a break-even money mindset will show fixed expenses being covered first, and then the rest being spent. Often when they get their bank statement or print it off, they have a quick glance and shove it in a drawer. Someone with a comfortable money mindset will show savings first, probably automated. They will open their statement, regularly check their bank balance, and file all statements. They will always live on less than they earn. Someone with a rich money mindset consistently monitors their accounts. You will see multiple bank accounts. All money will be used with intention, going to where it can work hard to make more money. You will see the flow. The person with a rich mindset will regularly check the performance of all these accounts, making financial adjustments to ensure optimum wealth growth and transferring money if needed. You will see savings used for the purpose of wealth growth and some for wealth protection, but never just hoarded. Your bank statements are the record and mirror of your financial decisions, and your decisions are at the heart of your money mindset. If you want to change your current mindset to another, start with your bank statements. First, look at where you are. It is much more effective if you can put together at least 6 months of your bank statements and then use these as a basis for the exercise. If you do not have your bank statements to hand, begin by listening to the exercise and enter your best guess. Action steps. Tracking your money behaviours. Number 1. Get a record of your last 6 months' financial transactions. Bank statements are great for this, including all your accounts, and also stocks, bonds, annuities, premium bonds, even a cheque or current account savings. In other words, all of your financial records. Then get 5 highlighter pens. Use colour 1 to highlight every time you have given money, and use colour 2 to highlight every debt you pay. For example, your mortgage payment, a car finance payment, a bank loan, a credit card bill, interest or an overdraft. Use colour 3 to show every time you spend money. Rent, council tax, petrol, car tax, repairs, food, entertainment and so on. Every time you spend something and pay for it out of available, not borrowed funds. But include any spending on a credit card that you always clear every month. The total will be spent, cleared at the end of the month. Use colour 4 to highlight all of your savings. Include here any financial products on which you do not have direct control. For example, a pension plan set up by an employer, or an investment plan sold by a broker as a financial product, or schemes that you allow a broker to run or a manager to make investment decisions on your behalf. Use colour 5 to show all the investments and assets that you have personal control over that produce money for you. For example, buying stocks and shares, business equipment, property, and everything you buy to get a financial return. Also show profits from leverage money. For example, income from rent, dividends, business profits and investments. What do you see? What happens when money comes in? What is the first thing that happens? Is some automatically sucked out to cover debt? Does some go to pay debts? Do you pay your expenses first and live on what is left? Do you save first and live on what's left? Or do you invest and leverage your funds? This exercise will give you some powerful pointers towards your mindset and where you can start to make a change. Where are your results? Are you mostly paying off personal debts? And are any personal debts left unpaid at the end of the week or month or quarter? Are you covering expenses and spending almost all you have with little left over for long-term saving? Do you automatically save and live on the rest? Is every penny spent with intention? Does your cash flow from your assets, businesses and investments? When you have looked at your bank statements and filled in the template, let's look at the pattern of your actions. What actions do you do most? Give, borrow, spend, pay expenses first, save or leverage. Do you mostly pay some debts, give money to someone, pay expenses, save, leverage, sell time in exchange for money, get money from assets? So which money mindset do you have? Can you see your pattern? Do you borrow, give, and then spend, which is an in-debt money mindset? Do you spend, give, and then save, which is a break-even money mindset? Do you save, give, and then spend, which is a comfortable money mindset? Or do you leverage, give, and then spend, which is a rich